I've got actually a picture of the book, or the book right here. So
Mhm.
this is what it's become, right? Codename Spike. And right at the tail end of my career, I was in the National Archives walking through the basements, and I find this leather-bound book, right? I'm just like, this is weird. Like, this is, it's weird in a curious way. But like, why is this out if everything else is filed and everything else? And so put on the cotton gloves, because that's protocol, and then open the page and I start reading it. And like, you got to imagine, like, this book it's heavy, but then you open it and the pages in contrast are so thin, wafer thin, right? They're almost, you can see your fingers through the paper, and it's been typewritten. So I'm like, oh, this is old, right? This is, first
Mhm.
off, this is old. This is worth reading. And then I'm reading it. It says based on a true story, and it's written by Joseph Koski. And the front page says, as told to him by Stephen Bizik. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. So I keep going, and I find a picture of, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I find a picture with this gentleman, General Donovan. He is pinning a medal on Stephen Bizik, the author of the book. Well, General
Mhm.
Donovan, he was one of the most decorated officers in World War I. He then goes on to be a very successful lawyer, then creates the Office of Strategic Services in 1941, which becomes the CIA, right? So the
Mhm.
godfather of the CIA is pinning a medal on Steve Bizik, and Steve Bizik wrote the book that I'm holding. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I don't understand what's going on. This is too much information to process right now. But I keep reading it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is talking about his mission, Steve's secret mission, right? That he went on in 1944. They jump in to Southern Europe. They fight Nazis. They fight the fascists. They supply the partisans. They realize that they've been embedded with the wrong guys, that they shouldn't be working with the communist partisans, but with the democratic Chetniks. But everybody's slaughtering the Chetniks, and policies telling them they have to work with the communist partisans, right? So Steve's typing all this out, right? He recollects all this. And the best part is he's taking pictures with his secret camera the whole time through, right? So in the memoir, I'm finding these pictures of him being like, yeah. And then General Apostolsky, who, coincidentally enough, in the 50s becomes a national leader of Macedonia. But now in 44, we have proof of him running around doing, horrible things to people, playing politics and doing all this stuff because Steve was there next to him when it was happening. And so I'm holding this memoir, and I'm just like, I think this could reasonably be like 1946 is when it started coming out. One of, if not the first memoirs of the OSS, because, and this is where facts have to get aligned. So the OSS turns into the CIA. The CIA then says, hey, we're going to recruit all the OSS guys, but then we're going to classify everything the OSS ever did, right? So OSS memoirs didn't come out till the 1980s, right? So here I am holding an OSS memoir written in 1946, 1 year before the CIA was created. And I'm just like, this memoir shouldn't exist because these weren't written until the 80s, but it does exist because I'm holding it. And inside is a picture of General Donovan pinning Steve Bizik, the author of the book. And I'm just like, brains blowing up. So I take the book, I turn to the curator, I'm like, can I take this? Like, can I physically take this and check this out at the museum? And he's like, no, we don't do that. And I was like, can you give me a copy of this? He's like, yes, we can give you a copy of this. So I get a copy of it, and I read it, and I fall in love with it because the detail that Steve goes into, he captures, and me as a Green Beret, right? My job is to go, quote unquote, behind enemy lines or work with the resistance, right? Turns out he wrote it 80 years earlier, word for word, how to do it, and that he was doing it, right? And so now I get to reflect all the way back in time through this memoir and see why I was trained to do the things I was supposed to do, because we always get told this is what you have to do, but it's really hard to say this is what you have to do because 80 years ago there's proof of it having happened, and so for me it was a beautiful moment in time because I got to really appreciate the full cycle of it, and to find it at the tail end of my career, right? So now I can turn it off, sort of like passing the baton back, right? I found this written 80 years ago. Now I get to recreate it, And, I found the families of Spike Mission, right? So the daughter, Nada, she's 60 years old. And then Ken, the son of Joe Koski, 70 years old. And then, it just blows my mind because the author's kids knew about this book, but they didn't really know how it how it granularly really defined special operations, intelligence gathering information, and then unconventional warfare, right? All things that are happening now happened because of these guys 80 years ago. And so I spent years researching and validating it. I think I went through over 1,000 folders in the National Archives, the British National Archives, reaching out to all these war memorials. And I started piecing together all these little puzzle pieces, and I put it together. And so and then one of the best parts was I found the actual Morse code messages in a folder in London, of all places, from Spike Mission to the headquarters as they were sending it back and forth. And so I have the memoir that says, hey, yeah, on this day we went over here and then blew up a bridge and killed 200 Germans and derailed the plane, killed 200 Germans. And I'm like, oh, that's a great story. There's no way to prove it. And then a year later, I find this folder with the official mission records and says, on this day, blew up a bridge, derailed 3 locomotives, killed 200 Germans. I'm like, oh my God, the memoir's real, and so it was like this gravitational beauty to it. And the family, I reached out to them. They were ecstatic about it because they were like, oh my God, someone taking interest in their family lineage, but all of a sudden a Green Beret myself, I'm researching it and I found it. And General Cleveland, the retired USASOC commander, so the commander of all U.S. Army Special Operations, he read this and he basically called it the architectural blueprint for unconventional warfare and special operations, and resistance operations. And so I'm like, well, that's amazing. You have a general who had literally changed the world at the height of war and conflict, saying that this book and now memoir now book is a critical piece to the special operations history, right? And then Charles Pink, the president of the OSS Society, he calls it captivating. He's excited about it, and so and for the couple of years now, right? To remind you, this took years to make. I'm now popping out of that threshold where okay, now I'm going to start releasing the book, right? So today is May 30th. So on June 23rd, so in less than a month, June 23rd at midnight, the book is going to get released because June 23rd, 1944, 80 years ago, at midnight is exactly when Spike Team jumped in to Southern Europe.
Oh, wow.
So it's the 80th anniversary. It's phenomenally timed. Yeah. And so all these beautiful tangential things have come together. And, and it's not just me building the puzzle, right? It's not me. I'm not claiming territory over this. But what's beautiful is that I get to, I reached out to guys that I know in the special operations community. I'm like, hey, what would you think about this title? How would you see this image? Hey, this is happening. What do you guys think about this? So, at last count, about 20 different people in special operations and intelligence communities, they've been coming to me by request or by invitation or through their own initiatives. And they're saying, hey, I found a piece of the puzzle. I'm like, oh, great. It goes right here. Can you put it right here? And they put it right there. And then a family member says, hey, I found this. Oh, great. I'm going to put it right here. And then mind-blowing because this isn't just a book that I wrote. It's a book that the special operations community wrote. And that's what's kind of really beautiful about this, is that it was written in 46. The CIA wouldn't let it be distributed because it was too inflammatory. So it disappeared. 2017, I find it. I carry it around with me. I pull it out, I research it, and then as I'm researching it, I'm finding people that are enamored with it, and they get involved. And now it's in less than a month, on the eve of their 80th anniversary, it's going to be released in its rightful place as a history book with a beautiful adventure story written into it.